and it's going to be followed by a few virtual tabling groups of local activists also. And again, we have a very stacked program this evening. We want to make sure that all of our panelists have a chance to speak. We want to make sure that everybody has a chance to have some questions answered. And we're going to learn a thing or two, just like we do every year. Before we get started, I'd like to read the biographies of our panel that we will be starting off this evening. We'll first be hearing from Mr. Tobias Fox, who is an agriculturalist, an ecopreneur, and founder and manager and director of the community-driven nonprofit Newark Science and Sustainability. He is a writer, a professional organizer, an urban farmer, photographer, and coordinator of an annual Sustainable Living Empowerment Conference. He conducts various community events, presentations, and workshops on sustainable living practices and has assisted numerous urban farmers and gardeners with the cultivation of their agricultural space. Followed by Mr. Fox, we'll be hearing by none other than Lana Mustafa, farm director of Montclair Community Farms. She is an environmentalist, urban farmer, social justice activist, and an educator. She has her own little homestead in Clifton where she grows a bountiful garden every season with her family and is a backyard chicken and beekeeper. Mustafa has always felt a strong sense of connection with nature, beginning with gardening at the age of 7. That love has developed into an everlasting fascination with the complexities and interconnectedness of this planet and society. And the gentleman who will be closing up our panel is Mr. Armando Cruz. He's an environmentalist, a community activist, and animal and human rights advocate. He is the senior nutrition educator at the Community Food Bank of New Jersey. He is also a founder of the New Jersey Climate Save, which has mobilized community residents to collect thousands of pounds of trash, preventing further damage to public parks, rivers, and oceans. Cruz has conducted recycling classes for youth groups, organized peaceful environmental and animal rights for youth groups, and is working to create many community food gardens in public spaces. By raising awareness of how to grow and access healthy, quality produce and minimize waste, he works to empower all individuals to create change. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is our 6th annual conference. It's been a long, crazy ride with Mr. Jose German. Jose is on with us, obviously, this evening. Jose, would you like to say a few words before we open up our panel?
Sure. Thank you, Doug, for greeting all the people. And on behalf of the Northeast Earth Coalition, I welcome you to our 6th annual conference. Last night, we have a wonderful evening with a great speaker and great presentation and a lot of excitement. We are still getting feedback from last night. So looks like it was really good. So I hope that we have the opportunity to network and doing collaboration with the people presenting and our community activists. Tonight is the night of the community activism. So welcome to our conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. And with that, I think that we should open up our panel. I know everybody is very eager, as am myself. I know Lana and Tobias. I do not know Mr. Armando. I'm excited to hear from the 2 familiar faces. I'm excited to meet Mr. Cruz. So why don't we start it off? Mr. Tobias Fox, please take the floor.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and allow me to be a part of this platform. I do want to just give a heads up that I am joining this awesome panel presentation conference. I'm used to seeing the faces in person, but I'm in the Dominican Republic, and I learned last year that only several countries acknowledge daylight saving time, and Dominican Republic doesn't. So we're an hour ahead. It's 8 p.m. here, and I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. My laptop was stolen, but I do have some words I would like to share that summarize my experience in the work that I do, how it came about, and why it is important to me. Excuse me. And so up until 2011, my professional experience consisted of creative writing, book publishing, and filmmaking. It was during October 2011 when I became exposed to the Occupy Wall Street movement that erupted in New York City. As I got involved in social and environmental justice, I developed friendships with local green enthusiasts. We came together to brainstorm ideas and solutions to help improve life in our communities. After being inspired by Occupy and becoming a lead organizer for Occupy Newark, I was compelled to form an organization that allows me to organize with other like-minded people. Prior to my engagement with the Occupy movement, I thought protests and rallies were a thing of the past. I didn't see the importance of it, but I learned that rallies and protests are a form of social advertisement. It actually awakens the social immune system and brings alarm to our grievances. It demonstrates how we are directly affected by our environment and our capacity to influence change. My understanding of the need and hunger for solutions in my community fueled my determination to establish Newark Science and Sustainability, Inc., with the principles of community agriculture over commercial agriculture and thinking globally, but acting locally. And I call that global. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? With all the events that occurred in 2020, this quote by Dr. King has become even more important to me. The coronavirus pandemic has brought to the forefront so many disparities in our society that we try to desperately hard to ignore. I honestly never saw the work I do as social or environmental activism, at least not until I began to learn about food justice and the belief that healthy food is a human right. So everyone has an inherent right to access fresh, healthy food. I also didn't know that this human right was something in many communities you have to fight for. Two of my greatest challenges with running a grassroots-led organization is the lack of funding and community engagement. Living and operating within a monetary system, there will be no escaping the need of funding. The challenge is that we are giving a $15,000 grant and are expected to change the world, whereas large-scale corporations are given huge amounts of funding and are allowed to fail repeatedly. This imbalance makes our grassroots efforts to some degree laughable, but we are hopeful, resilient, and learned to value collaboration. With regards to community engagement, I truly believe that if we are not in a position to hire people for their services, then we should maybe lower our expectations. Some of us come to a community with the thinking that we are saviors and or everyone has the same availability as we do. What I mean is that my first attempt at creating a community garden so residents could have more access to fresh, locally grown produce was dependent upon the residents being available and knowledgeable, or having the willingness to learn. I assumed everyone saw the need and importance of this work and had the time to commit themselves and was willing to put in their labor for free. I was wrong. It took me some time to realize that we have to alter and in many cases, completely change the way we look at things. I mean, that's if we want the things we look at to actually change. This thinking has helped me with the development of Newark Science and Sustainability and our newly established nonprofit organization, Action Global, in the Dominican Republic, where I'm at today. Richard Buckminster Bucky Fuller, who was an American architect, systems theorist, author, designer, and inventor, stated, in order to change an existing paradigm, you do not struggle and try to change the problematic model. You create a new model and make the old one obsolete. That, in essence, is the highest service to which we are all being called. And I'll leave on this note, as the late structural engineer Jacques Fresco of the Venus Project stated, if you think we can't change the world, it just means you're not one of those that will.
Thank you, Tobias.
You're welcome.
Now, instead of taking questions now, I think it would be best and most time efficient if we wait till the end of our panel to take questions. I know that we have a lot of eager people ready for some questions, but I think we should just hand the microphone over to Miss Lana Mustafa and hear what she has to say this evening.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you, Tobias, for your piece. You must be really happy in the DR now without any snow. So I think we have some New Jersey envy going on here. Thank you for everybody who's taken the time out to join us today. I'm going to assume that we're all very passionate about the environment and learning more about what we can all do right in the comforts of our backyards to make this world a better place. I do have a small presentation kind of outlining what I do here in Clifton and also how that continued on to my work in Montclair. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick screen share and jump right in. Okay. So welcome everyone. My name is Lana, like I said, and I am a Palestinian American mom of 3. I live right here in Clifton, very local. I grow my own food. I chicken keep, bee keep, kid keep, cat keep, worm keep, everything you can possibly imagine, I keep it. Here you see me in my front pollinator garden. I have a very small and very humble homestead. It's about 50 by 100 feet long and wide. And somehow it all seems to work out. How it happened is kind of like a snowball effect. I won't really take credit and say that I planned it. It just happened one bed at a time. Starting with my own childhood, I would say. I started gardening at a very young age. As the introducer mentioned, sometime around 7 or 8 years old, I discovered the germination process and things just took off. Everywhere I moved, I had my hands very deep into the soil and just continued to learn through trial and error. And there was a point in my life, I would say, where I gave up gardening. I was raising very young children and just didn't have the time. But as soon as my youngest was able to walk and talk and grab things, we got right into our backyard and kind of created my own little classroom with my kids. I was always very passionate about the environment and I was always a curious little girl running around, knees scraped, and I kind of wanted to instill these kind of fun values into my children. So as you can see, this was a very humble little plot here, about a couple beds, nothing too crazy, experimented with raised beds, container gardens, grow bags. And, you know, as the seasons went on year after year, I noticed that my kids were very engaged, curious. As you can see, my little Zacco, he's 8 now, but that's him at 2 years old holding a very juicy giant tomato. And as their curiosity kind of grew and evolved, so did mine. And I began reconnecting with my passion, I would say. Of course, the garden and any outside environment is the perfect place for kids to get dirty, kind of explore, and just help express anything that they want to express. One beautiful spring season. Where's the cursor? Sorry, guys. All right. No, giving it away. So one spring, I decided to introduce some chicks to my household. I think initially my intention was very experimental. I just wanted to kind of expose my kids to cute Easter chicks. And we quickly became attached and I realized that we were going to make this a very serious project. So we raised the chicks indoors. I had a little playpen and we had the chicks literally in our basement for a couple months. And soon enough, they were fully feathered and ready to move outdoors. One thing that's really important to me is always reducing waste and recycling. So what I did was I upcycled the chicken coop, free off Craigslist, made it into a little home for our chickens and continued exploring in the chicken world. Right now, I have about a dozen hens and we get on average 10 to 12 eggs a day. As you can see in the picture in the center, we have several different varieties of hens who lay all different colors, blue, green, brown, some yellow ones. And they are all named, though I constantly am changing their names. Through chicken keeping, I think my interest in gardening and kind of closing the loop started developing and connecting. I started realizing how I was creating a closed system where I was feeding my kitchen scraps to the chickens who were producing beautiful eggs and then using their manure in my garden. And one thing led to another when I learned about colony collapse disorder. And I'm hoping that one click is going to get me to the next slide. All right. So I think it was about 2015 when I started learning and hearing more and more about colony collapse disorder. And as a backyard gardener and an environmentalist, I just started looking for ways that I can help the bees. And of course, some of the simplest ways for any backyard gardener or any person to support their bee population, it's recommended you start a garden, or you start planting pollinator flowers, or you put out a water source. And someone like me is more about action. And of course, I decided to become a beekeeper. It took a couple months of reading, learning, and watching a ton of lectures to really fully immerse myself. And soon enough, I found a mentor locally in Clifton who was willing to mentor me and get me set up. His name was Brian, still great friends. And I kind of took off with beekeeping. It wasn't until my third year into beekeeping that I actually felt, I'm going to use this word worthy, because I value bees so much and I appreciate them, and I do not like exploiting anything. But it took me about 3 to 4 seasons, I would say, before I was able to harvest my very own honey. And you can see right there some of my jars, beautifully produced right here in Clifton. So very proud of that. And the picture right above it was probably one of my most exciting moments. While everyone was locked down due to COVID, I got a call for a swarm capture. And of course, I jumped right on it. So I went over to a different farm and kind of shook that branch and took home some free bees. It was quite a thrill, I would say, and very humbling experience. Let's see. One click. Come on. All right, there you go. So in my adventures of backyard gardening, every season I would look to like up my game. And one thing that I noticed was that I was producing a lot more than I was using up. I was lucky enough to actually stumble upon a woman who is now my best friend named Jana, who was a master gardener and a master food preserver. She is very Russian, so they are all about doing things from scratch. And at that point, I think that I was like pretty convinced that people they don't really garden. I wasn't really connected to a community. So when I found her, I was like, oh my God, like I need to be you right now. So she taught me all about canning, why it's so important in terms of prolonging your season's harvest, and of course, growing and having organic food throughout the season. Another cool thing that I learned was preserving herbs. So drying and using them medicinally has become a very interesting and fascinating gateway to, holistic life. I also do a lot of freezing and storing of vegetables. Just FYI, beans are amazing to freeze and they last a really long time in the freezer. Okay, so on to COVID times. I think we all remember last year, March, when we were all locked down at home doing nothing. A lot of people were losing their mind, but I was on the drawing board thinking of all the cool things that I was going to get to do in my backyard. One thing that's super important, of course, is supporting the wildlife population, whether it's pollinators or birds, or I don't even care if it's a possum. I'm supporting it. I'm putting some food out there. And what I did was I kind of annexed a portion of my backyard where my kids were playing and kind of created a pollinator habitat. So I incorporated a ton of very native plants, thanks to Jose for inspiring me. I visited his backyard like many, many years ago and just took off with, ideas. So as you can see, starting from the left, you have some echinacea, some beautiful milkweed, some comfrey. I did get a wildlife certificate, which was pretty fun because I had all the elements and hey, why not? In my backyard, you can't see this picture, but I also incorporated 5 new fruit trees, very dwarf miniature varieties. And the whole purpose was to really demonstrate what one can do in a very, very small and compact space. I'm going to remind everybody I'm on a 50 by 100 foot plot. So this is not large at all, but you could do a lot in a small space. And I think I was able to demonstrate that pretty clearly. I'm going to jump on. All right. So like I said, for me, my interest in nature really started as a kid. There was just something that clicked and I never left the yard. And as a mother, I realized how important it was to really instill and connect kids to nature. So with that, I started sharing what I was doing at home on social media. And I quickly gained some interest from some friends who were homeschooling moms, Christina and Melissa. And they encouraged me to start running some classes on my homestead. This was, I think, in 2017, I would say. I started teaching classes about bees, their importance, about chickens, their importance, about an organic, holistic lifestyle. I ran some classes on wild edibles and wild foraging, and also some herbalism classes. It's been a pretty cool adventure, I would say, and definitely part of my environmental activism, just like giving these kids a place to explore, to get their nails dirty. I know a lot of moms don't like their kids to look or be dirty, but for me, it's like, if you're coming to my house, you're not leaving clean, and I'm okay with that. I'm all about giving them the space to explore, to try new things, to push themselves out of their comfort zone. Same for myself. And just giving them some memories that they're going to look back at. I think it's super important, especially now with kids and technology and just an overall disconnect from nature, for us to kind of grab them at this tender age where things are still cool, you know. I'm always trying to, you know, stay hip, I guess, so that, you know, we keep environmentalism cool. I think that my experience here at home really set me up for my dream job. Enter Montclair Community Farms, a local nonprofit in Montclair whose mission is to educate and engage their community through farm food and health. I applied to Montclair Community Farms in 2018 as a part-time gig, and I was happy to start with them. We grow organic food. We support our community any way we possibly can. We do everything you can possibly imagine to go above and beyond to make people interested, just to create a safe space for their own exploration. And I am happy to say that, you know, 2020 was probably our best year yet. We have 2 beautifully producing farm sites, and I welcomed a cohort of about 6 college-age interns who I mentored over the summer. And together we were able to produce 1,400 pounds of organic food, which we load onto our mobile farm stand and offer to our community members who may or may not be able to afford or may not have access to organic, fresh, locally grown produce. In this picture is my director, Beth, who's awesome. She is one of the most inspiring women I know and always has my back and supports me. And our proudest moment yet was this year. We were actually awarded a 3-year USDA grant to help encourage and support a market for small grains while also empowering youth in entrepreneurship. And the best part of this whole project is that it actually put me at full time with Rutgers State University. And this position is going to allow me to continue my education in environmental science, which will hopefully allow me to continue to make a powerful impact in this world and hopefully inspire the next generation and anyone who's interested in, taking power back into their hands and doing something really good and beneficial for the world. That was a mouthful. I'm going to stop screen sharing. Alrighty, that's it. Oh, I actually want to finish with one quote. In 2020, I graduated with an associate's degree in biology. And of course, my kids were in the stands. And on my graduation cap read, "Let the beauty of what you do be what you love."
Thank you, Lana, for
Thank
your
you, guys.
wonderful presentation and sharing your experience. I met Lana many years ago when I was doing a presentation of about compost in City Green, and she was that young woman asking questions all the time and question. So I'm so thrilled to see you, doing everything that you are doing. You are an inspiration not only for our community, for many people.
Thank you, Jose. It's such an honor to meet you. And of course, my life has not been the same ever since that vermicompost presentation.
Lana, yeah, that was an awesome presentation. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That is truly amazing work that you're doing, as is a lot of the work that is shared here at all of our conferences. But I know that you can't hear it right now, but I can feel the claps coming through the computer screen right now. That was an awesome
Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to be able to share tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our chat is off the hook. Everyone really loved what you had to say. Now we're going to hand it off to Mr. Armando Cruz. I have not had the pleasure of meeting you in person, sir, hopefully soon enough, but this will have to suffice for now. And again, I'm very eager to hear what you have to say now. So please take the floor.
Yes, thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you in person as well. I know your face was familiar to me, and now I know why, because I was tabling last year.
Oh, okay.
At the conference, and I was like, damn, it would be so cool if one day I was on that side.
Yeah.
And here I am today.
You are.
It's an absolute pleasure, an absolute honor to be here.
Thank you for being here.
To share my knowledge and what I've been learning the past couple of years and my life experience. So I will share the screen. And again, thank you, Jose. Thank you to the whole Northeast Earth Coalition team for keeping up for the past 6 years. And I know many more years will be coming with a lot of success. So let's see. All right. Can you see my screen? Oops. I'm like finally giving it all away already.
Yeah. No, it looks perfect, Armando.
Okay. And I lost all my notes, so we'll go with what we have. So again, my name is Armando Cruz. I was born in Portugal. I came to the United States when I was 16. So my family, we come from a family of farmers. One of my grandparents used to be a servant. And coming here, I barely knew any English. However, now I'm the first in my family to graduate college, and now with a master's in exercise science. And I hope that my trip for the past couple of years, which was when I became more of an environmentalist and activist, inspires you. I am sorry. I'm going to say I'm sorry already for some of the stuff might sound a little negative, but it's just the truth of what's happening in our world. And I hope that I inspire you. And Lana and Tobias already did an amazing job inspiring you with what they are doing. So all together, one at a time, we can create change and change the world. So it all started with Food Inc. Like Lana, as far as I remember, I was touching soil. I was growing food in Portugal, even though most of our food that we grew was for the animals, because we had cows, we had chicken, and we had pigs. And that's what we did. So Food Inc. just showed me what happens in the background of mostly the industrial system, which is very exploitative rather. And we use the animals as the middleman to grow food for people. So instead of us growing food to feed people, we are growing food to feed animals, and then we feed animals to people, which is many studies show that it is a waste of our resources. However, not everyone has access to food and are able to buy food. But luckily, we are in a country that we are able to have options, and the options that we make 3 times a day can make a difference. So we began with the New Jersey Climate Save. I founded New Jersey Climate Save about 2 years ago, and we are part of a bigger organization. And we started with this was just one of the campaigns that we had, and we showed how the food system is it's a system that is controlled not by many people. It's mostly controlled by a small number of companies. So, for example, just soy. We have soy here that it is usually farmed by destroying rainforests or destroying the natural habitats, and is then grown to feed the animals. And a lot of this trading is done by some really huge companies. There are just a handful, and one of the biggest ones is Cargill, which is one of the biggest private companies in the world that controls most of the food system in the entire world, and almost nobody knows Cargill. Cargill also is one of the companies that sells the feed to these animals, so they control the market as well, and then they sell these products to people. Cargill, according to Amazon Watch, as well as Wilmar and JBS, which is the owner of, I believe it's the parent owner of Tyson, if I'm not mistaken. They are one of the 4 companies with the most impact in the Amazon destruction. And this is mostly to either grow feed for animals or to open up space to grow animals. And this is having a detrimental effect in the world. About 20% of the Amazon has completely disappeared already. And about 20% of the Amazon rainforest, rather, all the trees have completely been destroyed. However, meat is not the only reason why the Amazon rainforest is destroyed. The rainforest is also being destroyed by mining and logging. So a lot of us usually focus on sustainability, and we're going to plant more trees, replant more trees. But to be more effective, I think we should prioritize keeping the trees there. And here it just shows that it usually takes a long period of time for trees to start capturing carbon at a large amount. And here we have that if we keep the trees there, we'll be more likely to capture all the carbon instead of cutting the trees down and replanting trees. So we don't want to have a band-aid solution, which is replanting more trees. We want to treat the root cause, which is deforestation around the world. And today, I have a paparazzi here. Today we destroy about 26 football fields every single minute. Football fields, the same football field as we saw on the Super Bowl last weekend. We destroyed 26 of those around the world every single minute. That's 14 Manhattans every hour, and that's the size of South Carolina every year. That's 7 New Jerseys destroyed every single year for mostly the production of animal food for animals and for animal production. This is a satellite image of the Amazon rainforest, the fires, which caused a major blackout in a lot of Brazilian cities. And we are familiar with this. These fires are happening every day. And these fires can be preventable. These fires are not natural because in the rainforest, there's barely ever any natural fires, if ever. Most fires are man-made, or they go out of control because usually what happens, cutting trees is expensive, so it's much easier to just burn them all down. So that's what usually happens. And when things go out of control, we see fires like this happening at a tremendous amount. So what do you see here? No, I'm just kidding. It's blank on purpose. So global climate change, and as one of our attendees yesterday said, climate change is not a matter of opinion. Climate change it's a fact. And climate change is changing where people live. And Lana, this is also happening. I'm sure it's happening at home, and it's happening all over the world these days. And we expect, when I say we, as researchers, very conservatively, they expect about 200 million people being displaced by 2050. That's about 2/3 of the entire US population. So just think about that. The way we are changing the environment, the way the climate is changing, and don't get me wrong, climate change happens no matter what, but human activity is making the climate change happen at a much higher rate than it hasn't happened naturally in the past millions of years. So I'm going to show you two pictures. And I wish, and I don't want this to be an education, too much of education. I also want to share what I've done. And good thing, I guess, that I lost my notes because I had a lot more facts there. But I show here two different maps. On the map on the left, we have the countries that they contribute the most in terms of carbon dioxide. And these countries tend to be the ones that are affected the least by climate change. So the ones that profit the most from industries and from actions that contribute the most to climate change are the ones that are affected the least. However, the ones that affects climate change the least are the ones that get the most effect of climate change. So the ones that get more drought, the ones that get more heavy rains. Like you can see here, South America, pretty much the whole Africa. And if you look at the map on the left, are the ones that contribute the least on carbon dioxide. So we have countries that are the most poor and don't have the option to, and these people don't have the option to sometimes move, and that's why we see a lot of migrants moving now. Something is just wrong with these two pictures. It doesn't make sense. The ones that contribute the least are the ones that are the most effective. So I'm just going to pause for 20 seconds. I know there's been a lot of negativity, but just to show what happens in the rainforests and how our actions, even though we live in the US, a lot of our product comes from the outside. And some of our actions may contribute to this. And we're familiar with the koalas that were affected on the forest fires in Australia. And this was maybe not necessarily because of animal agriculture that started it, but because of drought that is happening because we're cutting our rainforests. And rainforests, as we know, create rain. About 50% of the rain is coming from evaporation from the ocean. But most of the other 50% moves inland because there's forests, they take in the water, they breathe, they take in the carbon dioxide, and they breathe out water and oxygen. And this builds clouds. And the reason I show this, it's not because I want to be negative. I just want to show you this because I want you to be hungry to learn. I want you to see things for yourself. Don't just learn from social media and websites and whatever gets put onto your phone, because we know nowadays that social media and your phone are very good at polarizing people and pulling you to a specific side or to have a specific opinion. So please look for your own information. On the not so lighter note again, we are growing a lot of food, and I work at a food bank. I know how much the need has been, and our numbers have shown that the need has increased about 56% this year. And we throw away about 80 billion pounds of food every single year in the US. It's enough to feed about 50 million, 5 times all the hungry in the world. we throw away about 40% of all our food production. So we don't have a food production system issue. We don't have it's not like we don't have enough food. Our issue is food distribution and food availability in the communities that need food, because the ones that need it the most are the ones stuck in food swamps, which are areas where there's either a lot of processed food, a lot of fast food, and no access to fresh or even produce at all. Whether it's frozen, canned, or fresh, it's always good to eat fruits or vegetables, no matter how they come packaged, but they don't have access to it because they are in a food swamp. However, we have plenty of food to give to everyone. Each family throws away about 219, each person in the US only throws away about 219 pounds of food every year. That's about $1,600 per family. So it's not just the food that we're wasting all the resources, all the water, all the land, all the energy from the farmers. We're throwing all that out. On a brighter note, these are some actions that we have been doing since I started New Jersey Climate Save, and these are mostly done here in New Jersey and mostly done in Hillside, actually. So one of my passions is not only food, it's not only the environment, but it's also the trash that's out there. So this all started by me taking a bike ride at a park and looking at a river, and I was like, what is this? So a couple of weeks later, I decided to organize a cleanup, and it's the cleanup on the bottom left. Those are our pioneers, if I'm not mistaken. That's either our first or second cleanup, and you'll see some numbers on some of the pictures. That's the amount of pounds that we collected on those specific ones. We collected about, I didn't measure every single one of them, but as of now, we collected over 3,000 pounds of trash out of either a river, a park, or the back of a forest, which was, at the end of the day, was going to end up in our oceans, in the Jersey Shore. So I encourage you to just start doing something. I never thought I would be an activist. I never thought I would be fighting for animal rights, for environmental rights, for people's rights, and walking on the streets. I never thought I'd be that type of person, but I saw the issues. And once you see these issues, you have two options. You can continue doing things as usual and keep a blind eye. Sorry, my English things are not always accurate, but you can turn a blind eye on the issue, or you can do something about it. I decided to do something about it. I was scared. I'm still scared sometimes. I'm scared right now of speaking in front of a lot of people, even though I'm a nutrition educator. But I am here. I'm doing something about it. 3,000 pounds later, I am proud of myself. I am proud of the people that have joined me. I am proud of the connections that I've made. On the top left, we have a picture of Lana, who is also an organizer that has been doing a lot of cleanups at a park near her house. And this is what we need: neighbors coming together, caring for their neighborhood. And if we have that on every single neighborhood, how much can we change? So on the bottom right, it's in Portugal. We organize a cleanup. So it's not only a US issue. You can create things wherever you go. Tobias is in DR right now. He's creating change there. So wherever you go, the only person that can stop you is yourself. Just start. You will learn. You'll learn from others. Others will join you. Okay? Don't be scared to start. You don't have to be an expert to begin. I was not an expert at all. I'm still not an expert, but I'm willing to do something about it. And because I have people like Jose that believed in me, here I am today. And right now, actually, I'll speak about that later. So then it's also important to teach others. and to engage others. So we did that by showing this documentary, A Plastic Ocean. And I will have some of the resources that I have here, I will share with you at the end, so don't worry about that. So A Plastic Ocean is a documentary that we shared, and this is how you get other people engaged. You share your knowledge with others, others will learn, and they'll do something about it, hopefully, because they learn about it. One of the mistakes that I think most people do is that we think that others know the same as that we do. We think others also know this information, but it's not always the case. Also, we had yesterday Lauren O'Brien from Pay Up Polluters talking about making others pay for what they are responsible for. And one of the things I want to mention is it's great to be active, it's great to be out there, but not everyone is willing to be out there and to speak up. So there's other ways of doing activism. You don't always have to be in the streets to be an activist. And if you're more one of those people that want to be in the background, one of the things that creates the most change, no doubt, is policy change. So people with energy will create change, but policy change will make it community-wide, statewide, global. And we need our governments, our leaders, the people that are supposed to be speaking up for us. We need them to make these policies, because people nowadays, they're worried about their future, the future of their children. And here in the picture on the left, you see some kids there. I'm very happy to see kids also getting engaged, and they are our future. And with that, one of the things that we also do, we also did recycling classes with kids, and we spoke to them about not creating more waste. So again, to treat the root cause, you don't want to just keep buying stuff, right? Recycling is amazing, don't get me wrong, but most of the recycle in the US does not actually get recycled. So the first thing you want to do is buy the least amount of things possible. Second, reuse as much as possible. And here we made bird feeders with water bottles. And we also created art with used paper, newspapers, magazines. So we want to teach our future leaders that they can create change. And we want to keep these things on their mind, because they will teach their parents. So on the bottom right is actually a picture from a park cleanup that I did. And I found that is a Gatorade bottle. And by the way, plastic will outlive their own ingredients. Whatever they package, they will outlive them by forever. Plastic never goes away. It just becomes smaller. And it gets into our oceans. And if you eat fish, research has shown now that fish have been coming, when they dissect the fish, they have a lot of microplastics, and microplastics are a completely different conversation, but let's just say they're not good for us, especially when they go inside our bodies. But here's just, again, I just want to encourage you to teach others, share your knowledge. And this was this is a first recycling class that we had, and they had a lot of fun. We then had more classes in this school, and we look forward to doing more. Now here, I want to show you that you're never too small to be big, and size does not matter. And this is PG-13, so this is a safe message. As you can see here, this is a challenge that we entered. So there's this company that does cleanups around the country. And I entered Hillside. And as you can see on the left, this is our second round. We made it to round 2. And between all these big cities, Hillside was voted to be a finalist. Guess by who? By people like you and me. I shared it with people. I told them what we were doing. I told them why. They shared it with their friends shared with their friends. This was one of the posts we had the most views on my page, because people come together when they care for something. And it's just for a visual, I want to show you this. The picture in the middle is a before and after of a cleanup that we did over just a small area, where this is in the back of the woods of a river. in a park in Hillside, and there's tons more of trash there still to be cleaned, and it's still a work in progress. But we'll get there. Now, in terms of health, I just want to show you the importance of growing food, because again, this is Northeast Earth Coalition. We want to create local change, and we want to empower people to grow food. And why should we grow more fruits and vegetables in urban gardens? And why is it important? Because as you see on the map on the middle is consumption of fruits and vegetables in the US. And if you look on the right is the rates of obesity. Darker color is the higher rates of obesity. And if you look at, there's some sort of a pattern. The states that eat the least amount of fruits and vegetables are the states with the highest rates of obesity. We're not even looking at income. We're not even looking at, well, we are looking at ethnicity, but the pattern is pretty much the same. However, people of color are obviously more affected. As we already know, it's no surprise to any of us. So here, in where we live, wherever you live, no matter where you live, we encourage you to grow more food, more fruits and vegetables. Our kids, our generation is the first to be considered not to outlive their parents. And people are still not scared about that. And most of the premature deaths in the US are caused due to nutrition or poor nutrition. And I want to just do a quick plug to balance.org on the left side here, where I got these pictures. They're an organization that if you're a school, a hospital, a business, an organization, a restaurant, if you're interested in creating better menus, changing your food system to a more balanced food system where it's more nutritious, they help you to do that for free. So I just want to mention that, balance.org. I wanted to put this picture here just to show and also to honor this month, Heart Health Month, and also Black History Month, and the rates of certain diseases. And in all these, we see a prevalence of higher rates of high blood pressure, diabetes. Unfortunately, I can't see what the other one is. And the rates of these comorbidities, which usually increase your risk of death, are higher in people of color. And this is mostly done by design because of how our food system, because of our cities are designed, because of our distribution of food is designed. So just going to quickly touch upon that. More of lighter note again, this is like a roller coaster. I encourage you to work with others. I encourage you to work with different organizations, even if you don't agree on every single thing. People need to come together. We need to work together more often. So we worked with You Create Macon, and they're in Georgia. But because we were connected with the SAFE movement, we started classes. Because we were in different states, we decided to do a virtual. And we taught mostly youth, and we taught them about nutrition education, why is it important to eat certain foods and avoid others. We taught about saving seeds, which I think is one of the most important skills in the world, to save seeds. If you have seeds and you have the right conditions to grow food, you have food. Food is power, as I think now you know, especially where we are in this world nowadays. And also we taught them how to start plants from seed, how to grow from seeds instead of just buying seedlings, which sometimes is more expensive. And we were working with lower income, and we wanted to make our program available to anyone for free. So we showed them how to start plants from seed, about edible herbs and how to collect edible herbs, what is safe, what is not safe, how to compost. You know, Lana loves composting. And I think Jose was the one that inspired her to do this. And composting is amazing. First of all, it's free because this is food you're going to throw in you otherwise would throw in the trash. You are cycling carbon. So instead of grabbing food, throwing in the trash, creating more greenhouse gases, you're actually creating more soil. I was actually going to bring a shirt that had make soil, but it was not good because since I was really nervous and I sweat a lot, it would not be good for the camera. So we also did this by trying to do zero waste. We want to create the least amount of waste possible. So we used toilet paper rolls. We used anything they had at home that they can start those seeds from. We wanted to do that. And then we also did recipe demos. We know from my nutrition classes that I do, from research, it's not brain surgery. We know that when people are engaging growing food, when they do it themselves, when they cook that food and they make that recipe, they're more likely to eat it. We had kids the other day, they were like, I'm not gonna eat that. And then we did the recipe, we did it all together and they're like, this is really good. So when kids grow food, they are more likely to try that food. So if you want kids to eat more fruits and vegetables, make them grow those fruits and vegetables. And not to mention that gardening is not only good for your health because you are physically active, it's also good for our mental health because it just keeps our mind off things. And research shows that when you see green, when you see plants, it helps your mental health. So we will only know in a few years how the virtual thing is helping kids, is affecting kids mentally. So getting them out there in nature as much as you can safely at this time, it will just help them in the long run, not just to eat healthier, but also to be mentally healthy. Last but not least, don't be overwhelmed on how to start. Start with whatever you have. If you have a little balcony where you can just put one pot, start with that. If this is a little bit of my backyard, if you have a stretch of soil in your backyard, start with that. We grow beans, zucchini, tomatoes, okra, a few more things, just on this little patch. There's a lot more on there, but I can't tell right now. If you have, this is in Hillside, which hopefully we'll start something in Hillside very soon. This is just a circle in the middle of a park that just grows grass. And I don't like to call weeds because I know every plant has a value, whatever it is, to create an ecosystem. But what we did here, and I hope the mayor is not watching me, which I think she is. I know she's on our side. We put some seeds here, which are not successful because we couldn't water them, and I went on vacation, and then I think everything dried out. We put some flowers also as pollinators. And on the right side here, this was our first little mini pot garden that we started that I did here in Hillside, again without permission. Do not recommend it. Don't do it at home. Do it in the street. So the only problem I have with this, it's amazing. It grows food. My brother actually was driving by and he saw people collecting the tomatoes from this pot, which is amazing. It's nowadays, a container of tomatoes can be $5, and not all of us can afford $5 out of tomatoes every week or so. So imagine having something like this on the right side, on every corner of a street, on every block. Can you imagine how much food we would grow? How many pollinators we would support? And again, the only issue I saw with this is that the fumes from the cars, sometimes it's not ideal for the food that you grow. So we just recommend to wash them very well. But imagine just having something like this, growing food on the side of our streets for free, where people can collect it on their own. And even if they cannot afford it, they're able to just walk down their block and grab something. These are some of the resources that I have, and I have shared this presentation with Northeast Earth Coalition. I want to give a shout out if you want to learn more about nutrition, to Nutrition Facts, balance.org. If you want to increase or improve the nutrition of your organization, restaurant, school, they do it for free. if you want to get active in policy change, Agriculture Fairness Alliance. If you want to be more active with activism, just start with anything that's close to you. Just do something. Just start with something. And then on the right, there are some movies that inspired me, that made me want to watch more. And they got me where I am today. So last but not least, grow food, share with nature, share with the wildlife. And remember, animals are here with us. They're not here for us. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Armando. Again, another great presentation. I know you can't hear the claps right now, but best believe I bet everyone is clapping at their computer right now. That was a very awesome presentation. Thank you so much for sharing. And also, I want you to know, Armando, you said before that you thought your English wasn't translating so good. And I just want you to know that your articulation and dictation was spot on and perfect. Your English is very great. You don't have any reason to be concerned about that. Now, again, just moving along, we had our panel speak now, Tobias, Lana, and Armando. The chat has been off the hook. People have a lot of great positive things to say about our panel discussion. I think now is the best time to ask some questions from our crowd. How we're going to be doing this is people on Zoom right now. If you have a question, please raise your hand on the app or on your computer, however you're using Zoom, and I will promote you to a panelist so we can see your face. If you're comfortable, we can hear your voice and you could ask your question. Please try to keep your question brief, just so if different members of our panel this evening would like to contribute, they have the time to do so, because please don't forget, we also have some virtual tabling taking place in the next few minutes. So we would like to just get a few questions in before that. So again, attendees, if anybody has a question, please raise your hand and we will happily call on you and start the discussion. I am bringing in Carol. Hello, Carol. Can you hear me? Hello, Carol. Again,
Caroline Bagala, are you there?
You're on mute. That's the quote of 2020.
Okay.
Hey, Carol.
Hi. I just wanted to ask about the Hillside Challenge. Is there anything that we can do to help him win the next level or
We won.
better
We
compete?
won.
Oh, you won. Okay, missed
Yeah.
that. Great.
That's what I'm
Wow.
saying.
That's
And
awesome.
we did win. Unfortunately, because of COVID, they had to cancel the event. So we're hopeful that 2021 they will resume. But we won. We won the small, I think, are we 3 square miles? We won the challenge against some of the biggest cities in the country.
Oh, that is awesome.
No, Hillside, New Jersey. That's crazy. Did you have another question, Carol, or not this evening?
No, not right now. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for asking that and having Armando firm that up. Yeah, that's crazy. Hillside, New Jersey. I mean, goes to show, right? About New Jersey and the kind of work that needs to be done.
The power of people.
Anybody else? Questions? Please raise your hand. Margie. I am bringing in Margie. Feel free to unmute. You are welcome to show your face again if you're comfortable. Margie.
I'm trying. Can
There
you
you
hear me?
go.
Yes, you can hear me? I don't know. Oh, I know. Okay. So I wanted to ask Lana, at the Montclair Community Farm, do you sell the produce or give it away?
So we actually do sell the produce at a very discounted and affordable price. It's actually kind of fun to come shop at our markets. We allow haggling and set your own prices. And we also accept EBT and double the value. So if you were purchasing something worth $10, we charge you $5.
Wow, Lana, thank you. Wow, that was very informative.
Mhm.
I have someone here that typed something into the Q&A for Armando from Peter Ortiz. How much of the food that we grow goes towards feeding farm animals versus humans? How sustainable is that? Question mark. That was
About, just in terms of grain, about 50% of all the grain that we grow goes to feed animals. So to produce 1 pound of animal protein, you need about between 4 and 20 pounds of grain. So just on that number, it's not very sustainable. We use about 55% of all the water use in the US is going for animal farming, where only 5% is used in your home and mine. So just throw it out there. I don't know all the numbers. I can't memorize all the numbers, but it's more sustainable to grow plant proteins or plants and directly feed people than to grow food to feed animals and then the animals to people.
Thank you, Armando. Great response. We have a question here from Gladys, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. I know I can, and I'm interested to see what the panel has to say. This is posed to all three of our panelists. This person, Gladys, she lives in Verona, New Jersey. She has a lot of squirrels and small animals that eat everything that she tries to grow. She tried growing on her deck, but there also everything was destroyed by the animals. Any advice? Question mark. That's a big question. I mean, I live up in Ringwood in the woods. I also have a garden at my house, and we grow all kinds of things. And the deer, the squirrels, the chipmunks, everything is always come. And you don't want to spray anything on your produce because you don't want to potentially spoil what you have. So what can we do to, really try to abate animals without hurting animals, hurting us? What does the panel have to say about that?
I guess I'll jump in here. So my advice is usually to grow way more than you can, and that way you're sharing with the wildlife. And also another recommendation is try to use some bird netting. Sometimes if you're growing in a small container, you can actually cover it enough to kind of keep them out. And always harvest right when something's about to be ripe. So don't wait for that juicy tomato to turn fully red on the plant. Try to harvest it a day or two earlier and have it ripen on the counter or something.
Do you have that issue over in Clifton, Lana?
Luckily for me, I don't have deer, not in Clifton, but I've had to kind of, take care of some other animals. I try to keep the cats in the backyard, and that kind of keeps the squirrels and whatnot away. But, we still have squirrels, and I had a groundhog for a period of time that I was not happy about.
Any other questions from our crowd and audience this evening? We have plenty of time. People definitely don't need to be shy. Again, we have three very knowledgeable people about community activism and environmentalism on the call right now. This could be a good chance to just pose a question that you've been wondering. I know you can't all hear it, but I can certainly hear the crickets from the attendees right now. I will ask once more if anybody has any questions. And I get, oh, there we go. I see one from Kathy, bringing her in. Hello, Kathy. Feel free to unmute your.
Yes. Oh, got it. There it is. Thank you. Hi. So yeah, I was wondering, our future, I believe, will be very local, and I'm wondering if the panelists could share any more thoughts they may have about how we can maximize self-sufficiency in communities. I was thinking, would it benefit for people to have fruit trees growing in their own backyards or something? Some kind of program to help plant for people in their backyards, that's for future self-sufficiency, because I do believe that's where we're going as a people, to more localized and self-sufficient communities. So yeah.
Thank you,
Well,
Kathy.
I definitely think the localization of energy and food production is becoming more and more prevalent. The necessity of it is obvious. It's definitely, it has become even more obvious in 2020. And so front yards, backyards, vacant lots, rooftops, retrofitting old warehouses, these things will become more and more looked upon as a means to self-sustain ourselves, self-sustain our communities, and also kind of rebrand and redefine our food system, which we do have multiple food systems, actually. I think the problem is that we have to kind of create this new paradigm. We have to create a paradigm shift from this large-scale commercialization of agriculture and think of it more in a more communal way. And so I've been fortunate to travel in places like the Philippines, Thailand, here in the Dominican Republic, and the relationship with the agriculturalist or the farmer, if you will, is still very highly important to the people in these countries. And so, but you come to a high income country like the United States, the relationship with the supermarket owner is far more important than the farmer. And so we have to just work collectively together, but also through a series of means, through legislation on a grassroots level. We have to definitely create a paradigm shift in our food systems if we want to create something far more sustainable.
Thank you, Tobias. Or Armando, I see you unmuted yourself. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I completely agree with Tobias. And I think it's a shame, especially in our neighborhoods, when we see a lot of different trees. And we see already some cities doing it, but why don't we have more fruit trees and nut trees around everywhere? I'm not saying get rid of everything else, but I'm saying have an ecosystem, have different types of trees. They grow food. We don't need them to grow, to be profitable. So maintenance will have to be limited. But and also just to go a little more from what Tobias was saying, most of the food that we grow in the US is from monocrops. It's either soy, corn, and alfalfa. So, and we're losing the number of farmers in the US. We're losing farmers by the dozens, if not by the hundreds, every single year. We're losing our connection with food. People don't know where food comes from. People don't know how food grows. So we need people to get connected with food. We need people to learn how to grow food, how food grows. And people like Lana, like Tobias, like Jose, getting people in community gardens, connecting with food again, seeing how beautiful food is and how it grows and how rewarding it is to grow food. Hopefully we can start bringing more quality food again into our markets and into our communities.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump in here and also add, don't forget the impact of your local community. There are tons of groups all around, Facebook groups, garden groups, all over in all cities, where you can begin to network with other gardeners, other people that are like-minded to create a more impactful, powerful change. I may have a really tiny garden and I may have an abundance of a certain crop that I would then be able to barter with someone who's right down the block from me. I also have fruit trees, and you can only do so much with a specific crop sometimes. So there's definitely added commodity there, and you're building community also at the same time. So you're kind of like taking one thing and growing a local economy just by bartering. So talk to people, get out there in your community, see who's growing what and what you could do to kind of help each other out.
Yeah. I second what Lana said. It's really important for us to act locally and support organizations that are working for our community rather than crossing the bridge out of the state for national organization. Think about what that national organization is doing for your community. And when you put in one side, maybe it's nothing, but you have a lot of people in your community doing all the job. So support your local organization. Most of the organization, like Newark Science and Sustainability, New Jersey Climate Safe. They are working because we have volunteers, but we don't have the money. So we have the heart and the love to give out, everything that we have for our communities. And let me tell you something. Last year, our volunteers donated more than 2,000 hours during the year. They are generous, extremely generous. So we need to translate that generosity from our community in support to the organizations that are delivering the work.
Thank you, Jose. Yes. I think that we have time for one more question, and I see Mr. Tom Mulligan has his hand raised. I'm going to bring him in quickly. Hello, Tom. Feel free to unmute.
Here I am. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Tom.
So my question was, does anyone have any news or updates about the proposed Hudson Essex Greenway project, and have community gardens been involved in at all with the process of that project at all?
Anybody?
I don't.
I
I wish I did.
Sometimes you're so immersed in like what you're doing. It's like, oh, something else is popping up. I'm sorry, Tom. I have not heard anything yet. I'm sure it'll travel down the grapevine eventually. And if you know anything, please do share with us. We're always looking to hear about other organizations and what other people are doing around New Jersey.
Yeah, I don't know much about the Essex Greenway, but I can speak for Passaic County, which we're just a couple towns away from some Essex County towns, and they have been working on the Passaic County Greenway, which they've been trying to connect for a while.
Our first presentation tomorrow is about the Greenway Project.
Oh, would you look at that?
We are on target. 10 a.m., Deborah Kagan, Executive Director of New Jersey Bike and Walk, she will be discussing the Greenway Project and how this project will be environmentally affecting in a very positive way Montclair and all the surrounding town through Jersey City.
That's incredible. Yeah, that is truly awesome, and that's just funny that Deborah will be speaking about that tomorrow, and we have some people who are curious about it because, yes, I mean, New Jersey isn't the most walkable state. We don't have too many walkable communities. So the fact that we've been trying to make these concerted efforts to really do that and instill that, connecting our communities without having to get into a car, that's a big deal. That could really help out a lot. If the only thing would be making people appreciate where they are more. Just by walking on foot. But again, this panel was terrific. I want to thank our three speakers. I always love hearing from you, Lana and Tobias, and it was truly a pleasure meeting you for the first time, Armando. You are all doing absolutely amazing work. I look forward every year to getting updates from you guys and everybody here at the NWEC conference. It's truly inspiring. So again, I know you can't hear it, but I'm going to do a little round of applause for you guys. That was incredible. Thank you so much for coming out this Friday. Please stick around. The virtual tabling that we have coming up truly will interest you guys, I'm sure. So thank you so much for being here, the three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's an honor.
Definitely an honor. Thank you so much.
Be safe out there. To our panel. Now, before we begin our next section for this evening, I just want to remind everybody that, again, this is night 2 of our 6th annual conference. Last night, we heard from a lot of great community activists and environmentalists. For those who are with us now, again, we had just a very great panel with a very great Q&A discussion. It's always great picking the brains of the individuals who are making a change in their community. Tomorrow, again, we will be hearing, like Jose just said, from Miss Deborah Kagan, who's going to be updating us on the highly anticipated Greenway that's going through Essex County. I'm very excited for that. I know that we'll also be hearing from Mr. Ted Glick from 350.org. And we'll be hearing also from our keynote speaker tomorrow, Dr. Douglas Talamy. He'll be having an hour session, and we'll have a Q&A with him also. So again, this few days has been filled with a lot of information, and we still have a lot more information to come. Again, we're at the 6th annual NEEC Acting Locally for a More Sustainable World Conference. Always learning things, always connecting people. This is exactly what we need to do within our communities. Now, our first virtual tabling group is going to be Montclair Mutual Aid. I believe we have a representative. I am bringing them in now. Cher, I'm sorry if I am not pronouncing your name properly. Please.
That's okay.
You.
Hi, I'm Shar.
Thank you. I apologize.
I'm here today as a representative of Montclair Mutual Aid, a mutual aid group based out of Montclair, New Jersey, as you may be able to tell from our name. I think a few other members of our group are here on the call tonight, like Greg Payson, Phoenix Herring. I saw Kate Albright and Margie, and I think also Mina Toller is on the call. So hi, you guys. And I just wanted to say thank you to Jose and to the Northeast Earth Coalition. I do really feel honored to present here in front of everyone and to follow Armando, Lana, and Tobias, these wonderful speakers. Yeah, it was just great listening to you all speak. So yeah, thank you so much for having us here for this virtual tabling. So I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to share later on in the presentation. So Montclair Mutual Aid's mission is to foster an ongoing network of people and groups in Montclair to help each other meet critical needs. In short, we're a group of neighbors helping neighbors get what's essential. So we are a young group. We're coming up on our 1st year anniversary on March 15th. So we've been around since March 2020. So we're sort of forged in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. But in that year, we've actually been able to accomplish a lot of different things in many different arenas, from delivering groceries to distributing clean water and menstrual products to participating in community gardening and stewardship of our outdoor spaces in Montclair, among other activities. So before I go more into talking about activities, I want to talk a bit about our model and how we're organized. So as a mutual aid group, we're trying to practice collective care. We're trying to operate in a horizontal rather than a top-down way. So not I have the resources and I'm deciding what you who don't have the resources need, more like we're working together to get you what you need, for example. Or the people who need something are leading that charge. So we share resources, work, care, and responsibility in support of one another. We build community power to change social and economic conditions. So that is kind of our aim and model through which we organize. Okay, I'm gonna try to share a screen right now. There we go. Okay, can you guys see that?
Perfect, it's perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's our logo right there, designed by Phoenix Herring. So I want to talk briefly about Montclair and about some of the challenges we faced as a mutual aid group based in this community. If you live in Montclair or New Jersey, you may know that sometimes there's sort of a perception of Montclair from the outside as a very affluent community with a lot of resources and sort of like an upper middle class liberal oasis, if you will. So while it is true that there's a lot of wealth in Montclair, there's also wealth disparity. And as the cost of living in Montclair rises, people who may not have the same class privilege are pushed out, yet it is also obscured that there are residents who are in our town who face issues like food insecurity, poverty, gentrification, structural racism, etc. I think probably because people with the most resources are the most visible, it's this perception is sort of presented out into the world. So this is a challenge we not only face as a community, but as a mutual aid group within this community as well. An example of one of these issues, as I'm sure many people are aware of, for example, is that, you know, the 4th ward of our town has been in food apartheid since 2015 without an accessible grocery store since the closure of Pathmark at Lackawanna Plaza. Meanwhile, the 1st ward of our town has 2 grocery stores within a half-mile radius of each other. So speaking of food insecurity and building community power, Montclair Mutual Aid, while we do operate in a different fashion than maybe a traditional charity model, we do collaborate with nonprofits and other groups in Montclair and the surrounding area. You know, we're solidarity, not charity, but we do work with charities, nonprofits, etc. Even if we are perhaps critical of certain aspects of the nonprofit industrial complex, we have a group have worked with entities that are charities and nonprofits made up of like-minded individuals who have similar values in our community. So like the Northeast Earth Coalition, dear friends of ours, and we're very thankful for them for including us in community gardening work. So we work with the Northeast Earth Coalition, tending, harvesting, planting, and maintaining the community gardens and other public spaces in town, particularly the community gardens established by the Northeast Earth Coalition at Crane Park on Pine Street next to Montclair Mall Church, which is right here where everyone is with a bunch of harvesting from the day. This was this past summer. So the vegetables we harvest are donated to Tony's Kitchen for distribution to neighbors in town. And we also work with Northeast Earth Coalition with the upkeep of local pollinator gardens at Crane Park and elsewhere to create not only public green space and community food gardens for people in our town, but also for pollinators in our ecosystem. And we've also done park cleanup in Crane Park and at Erie Park as well, just keeping spaces clean for people in our communities. So we also collaborate with Northeast Earth Coalition and other neighboring groups on the little free pantries installed in outdoor locations around town. One that's pictured here is at the First Congregational Church on South Fullerton. There's also one on Elm Street. And there's one at Vera Place, and soon there will be 2. Keep your eye out for new little free pantries popping up in many new locations in the near future. So that's also part of the work that we do to sort of, and the little free pantries, you know, are what they look like, small pantries where non-perishable food items and other things like toiletries, fresh water, etc., are placed around town. They're restocked and kept clean by Montclair Mutual Aid and Northeast Earth Coalition volunteers, but also anyone can drop off food and anyone can come take and food whenever they need. It's kind of no questions asked, you know, an easy way for people to get access to non-perishables. So we also work with Tony's Kitchen, which is a food ministry out of a local church that serves meals and groceries with people. So we've been helping them in their food deliveries to 2 senior homes and to homebound families. And one thing that we've tried to do in our work together is that we were, during the summer when they started delivering food, free groceries to homebound families over COVID. We were aware that certain parts of town weren't getting reached, so we flyered and postered in the 4th Ward in English and Spanish, and then we started getting food deliveries in that part of town. So we thought that work had been working in that direction. We've also, here's another picture of Tony's food deliveries. And also we've recently started partnering with both Tony's and Parents Who Rock, organizing free food and music events at Glenfield Park. This is the one that was on Sunday, the 24th of January. And there was free food boxes for family in need, as well as music for people. So that's another way that we collaborate with Tony's. So we also have worked with the Newark Water Coalition, bringing some of their efforts through their partnership with 501c3 to Montclair. So many residents, particularly in the 4th Ward of town, but in other places as well, have brown water when they turn on their taps. So Anthony Diaz of the Newark Water Coalition reached out to see if Montclair Mutual Aid would want to distribute jugs of clean water to Montclair residents. So we've been able to, on certain weekends, deliver gallons of clean water to Montclair residents. So yeah, we're really thankful for that opportunity to collaborate as well. And where's my next? Okay, yeah, here's volunteer Alex carrying a jug of water to deliver. These were some of our first projects last summer, working with Montclair Moms of Color, a group that our member Amina is both a member of Montclair Moms of Color and Montclair Mutual Aid. So we organized food and toiletry distribution in Glenfield Park with them, distributing hundreds of toiletries to moms and other families who might need them during COVID or otherwise. Here's from the food distribution. A newer project of ours is what we call the Aisle 7 project, which is basically a project based around an initiative to bring free menstrual products to our community. So menstrual products are very expensive and they should be available at no cost for whomever needs them. So Boardroom Skate, which is a female and non-binary led skate club at the Montclair High School, they run at the skate park at Rand Park a girls and non-binary skate day on Saturdays. And on one of these days, we organized that people would drop off different toiletries, especially menstrual products there. And we've been distributing them through the free pantries. We also have some of them in Tommy's Laundromat and on Maple Street, and also at the First Congregational Church on Elm Street. So these are also in the little free pantries as well. Here's some of our volunteers sorting the menstrual projects for distribution. This is from our project this winter called Adopt a Family, where members of our group adopted, and also working with volunteers outside of our group, collected gifts for families, for neighbors in our community who might have not been able to get them this year. Yeah, we brought gifts to 10 families, I believe. And this was supported by other volunteers in town who donated gifts and money for gifts as well. So that's just a brief overview of some of the work that we've done in town. Just what's up next for Montclair Mutual Aid as we come up on our first year? Well, there's a lot of different things happening and we have a lot more planned as we go forward and we start to grow as an organization. One of our projects that was put on hiatus over the winter was starting an outdoor community fridge. So we have the little free pantries, but we would love the opportunity to start an outdoor community fridge in the 4th Ward to be able to distribute things like fresh produce, etc. Finding a host has been a challenge for us. So if anybody is interested, please let us know. And here are different ways to contact us. Our website, you can donate to us if you would like at our Venmo, and our Instagram is also at Montclair Mutual Aid. So yes, you can find our contact information on our website or contact us through Instagram. We're also starting a composting project as a part of our work with our community gardening initiative and Northeast Earth Coalition. And yeah, we should be running a fundraiser around the 15th as well. There will be more coming up, so please follow us on social media to see our new projects. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all of that. That was very informative. Again, one of the best things about this conference is learning about the various different local groups doing so much for the community. It's incredible how much is getting done with all of our local activists here. I love to hear it. And again, just to make sure that we have enough time for our speakers before we take any questions for Montclair Mutual Aid, I want to invite Mr. Peter Holm to the floor now, a representative from the North and Central New Jersey Leaf Blowers Working Group. So Pete, please take the microphone, take the floor. It is your time.
Thanks, and thank you to Jose and the NEC and Doug for the opportunity. I'll say we don't really have a great name for our group yet. We've only been around for about 2 months, so this is what we're going with for the moment. It's descriptive at least, right? But thanks for the opportunity. I just have a couple of slides that I will put up to talk about what we're doing. And my co-organizer, Lois Cross from Westfield, is also here, I think, as well as perhaps some of the other people who've been involved. Is that showing up correctly? I can't quite tell.
It looks perfect.
Okay, great. So basically, we are a coalition or a little group of people, either 1 or 2 people from a bunch of different towns. I think we have about a dozen so far, who are working on this issue of gas-powered leaf blowers, at least as a starting point. I'm sure these are kind of a ubiquitous topic of conversation in a lot of our towns, and in some places there's a question like, really, is this where we should focus? Certainly, there's many issues around, but just to give a sense of like why we're trying to essentially reduce the use of these particular machines in our towns and across the state, is because they are very widely used, especially certainly here in Montclair. I know many other places as well, and their use seems to be increasing every year. They expose both the workers and the public to significant health risks, and both from an emissions perspective and a hearing perspective, and also damage natural ecologies. And so we're trying to just basically move toward a reduction in use and replacement with both alternative technologies and alternative approaches altogether that don't require the leaf blowing at all. Just as I said, one of the reasons that it's such a problem is the level of use. It's often all day, every day, seemingly for most of the spring, summer, and fall in many of the communities here and in different parts of each one. Largely through professional landscape services, but not completely. And they're particularly bad, more so than other machines, because of the 2-stroke engines that they use, which is essentially fairly low-tech technology that has the virtue of being cheap and being lightweight, but in terms of its power, but also is very inefficient and generates much more both noise and toxic pollutants than, say, the typical lawnmower, which is a 4-stroke engine, or certainly obviously electric alternatives. So just quickly going through, right, these are a major source of harmful pollutants, including ozone-forming compounds and fine particulates. These are particularly a problem right now when we're all at risk of a major respiratory disease. But these are also chemicals and compounds that are well known to cause increased community risk of cancer, heart disease, respiratory ailments, asthma, all sorts of issues, as well as from a noise perspective, hearing loss, certainly for the operators, is a major risk. But also from a community perspective, the level of noise that these machines put out for football fields around them are well known and kind of exceed the EPA like community noise levels for things like concentration, disruption to concentration and cognition, learning, especially among children, work productivity, and Lord knows all the things that it's doing to wildlife that we don't really know about because we can't measure it well in terms of their physical beings. In terms of natural habitat, right, this is not necessarily just specific to gas leaf blowers, although they are the main culprit, but the taking away of the leaf litter layer at the end of the fall, for example, destroys the natural habitat that a lot of beneficial insects use to overwinter, or other wildlife. It also affects birds and all sorts of other populations that rely on natural habitats, whether it's the leaves in the fall, or even things like blowing grass clippings away during the summer takes away the natural fertilizer that would otherwise be put back into the soil and return nutrients to the soil. And instead, people come and use artificial fertilizers, and which causes all nature of other problems as they go into our water sources, for example. So the last piece is that there's a lot of better alternatives simply readily available. They've really advanced in terms of technology, especially over the past 10 years as the battery revolution has kind of moved forward extremely quickly. So both at the homeowner level and at the commercial level, there are really increasingly effective tools and cost-effective tools available in terms of battery electrics. Of course, there's also rakes, brooms, good old manual tools, and I think most importantly, alternative approaches that we're trying to help people understand better about, letting the grass clippings recycle into the lawn, leaving some leaves around to be natural habitat, mulch mowing leaves in the fall to, again, like both get rid of them and from the top of the lawn, but also return nutrients back to the soil. So a lot of this is also about public education and just helping people understand there are different ways you can approach this task. So what is our actual group doing? We have kind of 3 main goals. One is basically to share information and resources across different communities who are trying to do something about this. Things like putting together a strategy toolkit, putting together how-to documents and information, for example, how to write a grant to help with transition assistance, how to do a webinar, for example, how to write an ordinance, how to talk to your landscaper, how to talk to your neighbor, all those types of things, educational materials, model ordinance, et cetera. We're trying to just rather than each one of us reinvent the wheel in our own communities, let's use the resources that others have developed, let's share them, let's improve them, and let's distribute them. And also we're just creating amongst ourselves, right, and hopefully growing to some people who might be here tonight or people that you might know, a network of collaborative partners and colleagues. So, drawing strength from each other on working on this issue, which can be a real slog anytime especially when people are trying to pass legislation or ordinances in their township councils or undertake some, changing of minds in public education that can really take, a long, long time. The second goal we have is to promote behavioral change, and this would be among landscapers, among homeowners, among commercial entities, building owners and landlords, churches, schools, whatever, as well as municipalities themselves. So we are trying to just promote change in behavior, whether that's transitioning to different forms of equipment or approaches, whether that's ensuring that workers are using proper protective equipment when they are operating the machines, and then adopting the greener practices that we would like to see as a replacement. And third, promoting restrictions on these machines. And we think there's a lot you can do through education and cultural change and knowledge, but there's also a lot of good you can do through making bad behavior illegal, essentially. In Maplewood, in Montclair, I'm sure there are a few others, we have some seasonal bans. The real challenge is enforcement, but Maplewood, I think, has found a pretty good model for enforcing their law in the summer, and we are trying to improve ours on that front. There are some communities around, I'm not aware of any in New Jersey, but in Larchmont, New York, and Irvington, New York, and Washington, DC, they have recently passed year-round complete bans on these machines. And in Washington, DC, there was an extensive kind of hearing process and evidentiary record put together that anybody can access on their website of quietcleandc.com, which is really great. A lot of expert testimony and discussion of how this will actually work in practice. And then finally, there are some statewide efforts happening. I'm aware, for example, of a bill that's been introduced in New York at the state Senate to try to basically affect a seasonal ban there. So we'd like to basically just help each other do these types of things at the municipal level, see where we might be able to cooperate and get some traction at the statewide level. Understanding these things will take time. And in terms of our participants, we have, like I said, about 1 or 2 people per municipality. We have, let's see, looks like, I think 14 so far. We've only been around for a couple months, so we've had all of, I think, 2 meetings. But anybody, we are a mix of people. Some of us are on the Environmental Commission or on a township council. I am not, I'm just kind of one of the people who created a private group called Quiet Montclair, where we've built the website and have done advocacy and education. People are on the green team in their town, so various ways in which they're involved. And a bunch of them, as you can see, are on our list. And just in terms of what we've started to do, again, very early, we're compiling information and resources. We're starting to identify what types of content would be useful to people in their towns to educate others, or to be a handout, or to be a informational video or something that could be distributed. We're putting together a strategy toolkit with our experiences and what we've learned from trying different things in different places. And we've kind of proposed to Sustainable Jersey that they could add an action item on this issue into the big list of bronze and silver certification criteria, such that different towns could get points for various actions they take to try to reduce the use of gas-powered machines and move toward better alternatives. So this is our contact information. If anyone listening or people that you know from other towns are interested in being a part of what we're doing, please email either me or Lois. I can also put this in the chat. And if you're interested, a couple of our towns have created just privately websites. We all happen to start with the word quiet, not because the noise is the only issue, but it is a real one. It does affect a lot of people. But we're also kind of keying off of a national organization called Quiet Communities, which has done a lot of research and advocacy around this issue there too. So thanks for the time. Appreciate your listening and the opportunity, and I'm happy to answer questions as well.
Thank you so much, Peter. That was an awesome presentation. Thank you so much again for sharing. Again, all of our attendees, that concludes our virtual tabling, and we would like to take any questions from the crowd. Again, we have 2 very knowledgeable local community members here who are definitely willing to answer any kind of questions that you might have. So again, please raise your hand in the Zoom chat. I will bring you in and we could hear from you. You could show your face if you're comfortable and ask a question. Try to keep it brief. We want to make sure that both of our table groups here have an ample chance to respond to your question in full and at length. Again, they're very knowledgeable. We're curious to hear what they have to say. So again, any attendees, please raise your hand. Feel free to ask a question. Don't be shy. We have time. This is our attendees' time. I see one hand has shot up from our friend Margie. Hello, Margie. Feel free to ask your question.
So Peter, what is the focus of the group? To get rid of the noise, to get rid of the gas-powered machines, or to have people not clean the leaves off their yards? Because they're two really different issues.
Right. So our primary, am I still muted? No. Our focus is reducing the use of the gas-powered machines, right? Those are the machines that cause the greatest problem, both from noise and from a pollution and ecosystem perspective. So I think, you know, we recognize, right, that a lot of people, businesses and homeowners alike, municipalities are not ready to say there's just no leaf blowing whatsoever. That is certainly, I think, the most environmentally friendly approach, but it's not something that we think is really achievable in the next, you know, foreseeable future. So, you know, just, I guess, speaking for myself and what we've done in Montclair, we have focused on getting rid of the, over time, getting rid of the worst offender, which happens to be this particular machine that is so widely used. And if people want to move to the battery electric version of it, that isn't ideal, but it's much better, both from a noise and pollution perspective. And if they want to, you know, and in addition, right, I think we've learned that there's a lot of people who don't realize that there are alternatives to, like, how do you deal with, okay, my 5 oak trees have dropped, you know, a mountain of leaves on my lawn. I can't just leave it literally there. It will create a mat and kill everything on my lawn. Like, got it, right? But for example, you could do mulch mowing a couple times during the fall rather than removing the leaves from your property and sending them somewhere else, right? Or you could pile them and compost them, or you could put them on your beds. There's, like, you know, a lot of that, all of that would be within, I think, where we'd like to go. Just a variety of different ways in which you could approach the issue that doesn't require the use of the gas leaf blowing. Does that answer your question? I hope.
I took her out, but I think that was a very great response. So I'm going to ask a very quick question while we were on that subject, actually, because I'm curious, because I know that the environmental culture of individuals and community groups, I've heard a lot of different opinions on it. What's your opinion, Peter, on leaving the leaves on the lawn? Have you heard those campaigns?
Sure,
I know
yes. I would be interested in right. I'd love to hear Jose's view on it too. But I think, right, in general, there's a lot of, like, we talk maybe about, like, leave some leaves or leave, like I think certainly we feel like having a perfectly leafless, you know, no organic matter left behind is not really the ideal that we would strive for. Of course, but, you know, we also kind of realize that you can, if you have like a mat that covers your entire property, it keeps everything from getting any light in the spring. Like, that's going to be a problem as well. So, you know, I think certainly you need to have some leaf litter left around, like for pollinators, for other insects, for wildlife, like whether that be putting it into a kind of semi-forested area on your lawn, or putting it into your flower beds, you know, kind of piling it in different places. Those are ways, I think, that fall under the leave the leaves mantra, and certainly within a forested area, just leave it all together, right? But on your regular standard suburban lawn, I think most people do want to, you know, manage it in some way, and it's a matter of, like, returning the nutrients of the leaves in various different ways to keeping them on your property, whether that be chopping them up and putting them back on the grass, or whether that's you know, moving them to different piles or whatever. Does that answer the question?
That was a great response. I appreciate that very impartial response. Jose, do you have something to add to that? Peter was curious to see if you had an opinion.
Yes, I second what Peter said. We don't move the leaf. We use leaf for composting, and whatever is remaining and falling naturally, eventually the wind will be moving them into our flower bed. And after rain, that looks like they were purposely mulched, with leaf. Everything looks great. The following year, we have a lot of pollinators coming from the leaf. It's fertilizing the soil. It's a win-win situation. It's also suppressing weeds. So I don't see how we can lose with that.
Nice. Thank you, Jose. I think that we could have time for one more quick question. If anybody was jumping out of their seat, please feel free to raise your hand. If anybody has a question, going once, going twice. Jose, anything that you would like to add before we close up the evening?
Well, first, I want to recognize the good work that you have been doing yesterday and today during the conference, as well as our panelists and attendees. The conference is what is supposed to be a community event. So bringing people together, creating collaboration, networking with others, and sending the message. Tomorrow we will have a great program. I encourage you to get connected tomorrow. If for some reason everybody who is attending tonight has the link for tomorrow. So there is no excuse to say, I don't have it. If you know anyone who didn't get tickets, just let me know. And we will more than pleased, to send the ticket to the person if they want to attend. Thank you. I see Trina Polos is raising hand.
Hey, Trina. I remember Trina. What's going on, Trina? You have a quick question? Please feel free to unmute if you have a question, Trina.
I just want to say thank you for that community service. I'm one of the people who received it. And all kinds of wonderful things have happened. I'm 89, and I guess people have decided I'm older. So people have shoveled snow, people have helped clean up my yard, and I had the privilege of having a food pantry in my front yard. And so I just want to thank you very much, Char, and the other people who have come, many of whom I couldn't recognize because we're all wearing masks these days, which makes identifying everybody a little difficult. But I'm very grateful for that. So I just thought I'd use this opportunity to say thank you very much for a community that cares for each other. I'm very privileged to live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Trina. It was truly our pleasure to come over there and, hang out with you and clean things up. And, thank you so much for hosting the little free pantry in front of your home. It's a major help to us and many other people in the community. So thank you. I also just wanted to add really quickly that our next food distribution in Glenfield Park with Tony's Kitchen is on February 21st. Montclair Mutual Aid has general meetings on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of each month. And also this Monday, the 15th, we were hoping to go down and look at the greenhouse at the community garden on Pine Street. But if it snows out and the weather's no good, at 10 a.m., instead of meeting there, we may meet on Zoom. So if you're interested in that, I put the email of us in the chat. If so, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Before we close, I will add to something. And thank you, Char, for bringing the greenhouse. The Pine Street Community Garden has a new greenhouse, and that will be expanding our possibility to grow more food and even disseminate more native plants. That is one thing. And I also want to share with you, because this is important for our community, Crane Park Demonstration Garden was nominated to a very important environmental award. And the nomination was accepted. We are very confident that probably we will be getting the award this weekend. So let's pray for that. And that is something very special because we are competing not as a designer, not as a big company or non-profit organization, but at the community level. So this is a community level project. So very proud to be part of Crane Park. And also, I know that you have the same feeling too. Thank you.
That's awesome, Jose. Hopefully we'll find out tomorrow during the rest of our conference. That would be pretty awesome.
The award is the Land Ethics Award. So it's how a community can use the land in an ethical manner to support the community and bring people together and connect people in the community.
Awesome, Jose. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much for attending. I want to thank Tobias. I want to thank Lana. I want to thank Armando. I want to thank the Montclair Mutual Aid Group, the North and Central NJ Leaf Blowing Working Group. Again, that rolls right off the tongue, Peter. Don't worry about it. And of course, let's all give a big thank you to Jose, our fearless leader, putting on another great conference. Again, yesterday we had a great program. This evening we had a very great program. Tomorrow, please don't forget to tune in. We're going to be hearing from Miss Deborah Kagan again about the highly anticipated Essex County Greenway. I'm very much looking forward to that. We're going to hear from the legendary Ted Glick and hear about some of his experiences. And then of course, we'll have our keynote speaker, Dr. Douglas Tallamy, towards the end of the afternoon. And that's going to be a very informative program tomorrow morning also. So please, I'm looking forward to seeing all of you and more about 24 hours from now. 12 hours from now, actually. And it's going to be another very informative day, learning about what we can do right out our front doorstep to help make the world a little bit better of a place. So with that, I want to thank everybody for attending. Again, this is our 6th annual Acting Locally for a More Sustainable World Conference hosted by the Northeast Earth Coalition. 6 awesome years making the earth a little bit of a better place. And again, tomorrow we will continue that journey, and we are looking forward to seeing everybody there. So please be safe until then. Stay happy and healthy, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.